Edwin Valero had it all. Fame, wealth, an unstoppable career, and a future that promised to be legendary. Undefeated, feared in the ring, and admired by thousands, he seemed destined for greatness. But one day, everything collapsed. In the early hours of the morning, he calmly descended to the lobby of a hotel, and without the slightest trace of emotion, told the receptionist he had just killed his wife. Her body was in the room. How did a boxing icon become the central figure in a tragic downfall? If you want to know everything that happened, stay with me until the end of this video. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. I'm very happy to be here with you once again. Thank you so much for tuning in, wherever in the world you may be. Today's case takes us to Venezuela, the story of Edwin Valero. Join me as we explore all the details. Edwin Valero was born on December 3, 1981 in El Vigia, a small town located in the state of Mérida in western Venezuela. He was the son of Domingo Valero and Eloisa Vivas and grew up in a low-income household alongside 5 siblings. Life at home was far from easy. According to multiple sources, the family was highly dysfunctional. His father came and went as he pleased, leaving everyone in a constant state of emotional and financial instability. It was precisely this lack of stability that pushed Edwin, still just a child, to go out and help support the household. He began by selling fruit and anything else that could earn him a few coins to bring home. That early exposure to the streets, the harshness of life, and having to work from such a young age, all helped shape his character. He got into more than a few street fights and was even detained multiple times for petty theft. As we can see, his childhood was anything but peaceful. But everything changed when he was just 11 years old. That's when Edwin began frequenting a neighborhood gym. Initially, he was trained just like any other kid, but it didn't take long for the trainers to notice something different. He had a natural talent for boxing. From that moment on, the ring became his escape, his refuge. Boxing became his way of letting off steam, a means of releasing everything he held inside. By the age of 12, he was already a force to be reckoned with, and barely a year after he began training, he was dominating national tournaments. For 3 consecutive years, he held the title of amateur champion. He practically lived at the gym, training with intensity, discipline, and an almost obsessive passion. His efforts paid off. He racked up an astonishing 86 victories at last. Life seemed to be smiling on him. He had found his path, something that gave him purpose, motivation, and direction. And as if that weren't enough, he also found love. In the late 1990s, at age 17, Edwin met a girl at a party who would go on to play a pivotal role in his life. Jennifer Carolina Viera. At the time, Jennifer was just 12 years old. She was the daughter of Armando Viera and Mari Fanol, a student at one of the most prestigious schools in Mérida, and she had a clear dream to become Miss Venezuela, and she had everything it took to achieve it. From the moment Edwin laid eyes on her, he was captivated. He began seeking her out, trying to get close to her and doing everything he could to win her attention. Naturally, Jennifer's parents were far from pleased. She was still a child, and in their eyes, Edwin was an aimless young man who made a living through violence. They envisioned a very different future for their daughter. But that didn't stop Edwin. He would wait for Jennifer outside her school and walk her home. In an attempt to separate them, her father even threatened to press charges against Edwin once he turned 18 for being involved with a minor. But Edwin didn't care. Eventually, when Jennifer was just 15 years old, she gave birth to their first child, a boy they named Edwin. She broke ties with her parents and moved in with the boxer, becoming his unwavering companion. She was always by his side, offering encouragement, cheering from the front row at every fight. But life had a harsh test in store for them. On February 5, 2001, Edwin was in a serious motorcycle accident. He wasn't wearing a helmet, and the impact caused a severe skull fracture. Doctors had to perform emergency surgery to remove a blood clot from his brain. It was a delicate operation, and many believed his boxing career was over. But Edwin was not one to throw in the towel. By July of the following year, with medical clearance, he was back in the ring. On July 9, 2002, he made his professional debut and knocked out his opponent in the very first round. It marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one filled with more determination than ever before. That same year, on October 8th, Edwin and Jennifer were married in a civil ceremony. Eventually, her parents relented and gave them their blessing shortly after, in 2003. While they were living in California, their second child was born, a daughter named Jennifer Rosalie. By that time, Edwin's career was soaring like a rocket. he began gaining fame under two nicknames, Inca Valero, about his indigenous features, and Dynamite, for his explosive no-nonsense fighting style. His first 18 professional fights all ended in knockouts, each within the first round. The 19th bout went into the second round, yet still ended in a knockout, breaking a record that had stood since 1905, the most consecutive first-round knockouts in professional boxing history. And that was only the beginning. Edwin never lost a single professional fight. He finished his career with 27 wins, all by knockout. He was an unstoppable force in the ring, a true beast. With all that talent, one of his greatest ambitions was to make it big in the United States. He had already fought there a couple of times, and one of the world's top boxing promoters signed him with major plans. They wanted him to open a fight card in New York at the start of 2004, but just when everything seemed to be falling into place, his past came back to haunt him. During routine medical checks, doctors discovered the brain injury he had sustained in the motorcycle accident. Because of this, U.S. authorities denied him a license to fight. Still, Edwin didn't back down. He remained undefeated, fighting in countries like Argentina, Panama, Japan, France, and of course his native Venezuela. In addition to his knockout streak, Edwin earned respect among fellow fighters for another reason: his punching power. It was so intense that many top-tier boxers sought him out for sparring sessions, including none other than Oscar de la Hoya. There's a frequently told, though never confirmed, anecdote. During a sparring session, Edwin reportedly landed a punch so powerful that even with protective gear, he gave de la Hoya a black eye. Is it true? Who knows? What is certain is that Oscar de la Hoya never invited him back to train again. But not everything was going well. In 2009, as his career continued to rise, Edwin was arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol. This costly mistake caused him to lose his spot on the fight card for one of the most highly anticipated matches of the time, Manny Pacquiao vs. Miguel Cotto in Las Vegas. It was becoming clear that Edwin wasn't just fighting opponents in the ring, he was also battling his inner demons. Alcohol and illegal substances had started to invade his life more and more. Even so, in that same year, 2009, he and Jennifer took another significant step in their relationship. They were married in a church ceremony in their hometown. The family divided their time between Caracas and La Palmita in Mérida. He had purchased several properties, including a home for himself, and one right next door for his mother, so she could always be close and spend time with her grandchildren. But beneath the surface of what appeared to be a picture-perfect life, a much darker reality was unfolding. Jennifer had spent years enduring the most harrowing side of Edwin. In silence, she bore the weight of physical abuse, verbal outbursts, and constant humiliation. She suffered both physically and psychologically, and at times Edwin even forced her to consume illegal substances alongside him. Her father, deeply concerned, tried to intervene. He urged her to press charges, and even offered to file a report himself. But Jennifer always refused. She didn't want to imprison the man who, despite everything, was still the father of her children. And perhaps most painfully, Jennifer was not his only victim. On September 27, 2009, the media reported that Edwin had been arrested for domestic violence. It began with a heated argument that escalated into assault, not just against his mother, but also one of his sisters. Edwin publicly claimed it was all fabricated, an attempt to tarnish his reputation. Shockingly, instead of condemning his actions, his mother defended him. No one spoke up, everyone remained silent. Meanwhile, the situation worsened, snowballing out of control, until no one could stop it. Then, in March 2010, everything came crashing down again. One of Edwin's sisters began hearing screams coming from his house. Alarmed, she ran to get their mother, and together they rushed over. When they entered the home, they found Jennifer injured, barely able to speak. She told them she had gone upstairs to check the water tank level and had fallen down the stairs. At that moment, Jennifer's father also arrived. He insisted they take her to the hospital, but Jennifer refused. She said she just needed to rest and get some sleep. No one could have imagined what would come next after that alleged fall. Jennifer's condition worsened rapidly. Her entire body ached and she struggled to breathe. When the family saw how much pain she was in, they didn't hesitate. They immediately called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within minutes. After assessing her condition, they decided without delay to take her to the hospital. Following the ambulance in a separate vehicle was Edwin and Jennifer's father. But midway to the hospital, Edwin said he needed to step out, that he had to leave the car for a moment. His father-in-law pulled over, and Edwin exited the vehicle. He never came back. When it became clear that Edwin wasn't returning, Jennifer's father continued on alone to the hospital. Doctors confirmed what many had feared. Jennifer had 2 fractured ribs, and one of them had punctured a lung. Despite the severity of her condition, she continued to insist that it had all been the result of a fall. But the medical team knew that wasn't true. These kinds of injuries don't occur from simply falling down the stairs. They were the consequence of a violent beating. And considering who her husband was, it didn't take an expert to piece things together. Edwin had the strength to knock out professional fighters in seconds. Of course, he had the power to seriously harm his wife. Yet even then, Jennifer refused to accuse him. She didn't want him to be arrested. But this time, someone broke the silence. The physician who treated her decided to speak out. Through her account on a well-known social media platform, she publicly denounced the assault, stating that Edwin had savagely beaten his wife, and added that the medical team would be filing a formal complaint against him. The next day, Edwin showed up at the hospital. He didn't come to apologize or express remorse, quite the opposite. He arrived agitated and aggressive, ignoring the fact that Jennifer was in intensive care. He tried to approach her, but hospital staff blocked him. He responded with shouting, insults, and shoving. He confronted the doctor and a nurse, but this time he didn't get away with it. He was reported, and shortly thereafter, police arrived at the hospital to arrest him. At the police station, Edwin underwent toxicology testing, and the results surprised no one. He had alcohol in his system, along with traces of various illegal substances. Given the mounting evidence, on March 28th, the judge took decisive action. He issued a restraining order prohibiting Edwin from approaching, harassing, or following Jennifer. The judge also extended protection to the medical staff and ordered that Edwin be admitted to a substance abuse rehabilitation program, where he was immediately hospitalized. As for how long he was supposed to remain there, reports vary, but one thing is certain: he stayed for only 5 days, a period most would agree is entirely insufficient to treat such a severe addiction. Soon after, Jennifer was discharged from the hospital, and as had happened before, she refused to press charges against Edwin. And without a formal complaint, prosecutors could not pursue an assault charge against him. As a result, the judge imposed. He was placed under a court order requiring him to report to the courthouse every 90 days. That day, Edwin left the courtroom hand in hand with Jennifer, as if nothing had ever happened. His freedom, however, came with strict conditions. He was to remain at home under police supervision. But the reality was far different. The so-called surveillance was largely symbolic, and Edwin continued doing whatever he pleased, coming and going as he wished with complete disregard for the court's orders. On April 16, 2010, Edwin and Jennifer left Merida in their car, heading to another state, a direct violation of judicial restrictions. From the beginning of the trip, Edwin behaved strangely. He was nervous, paranoid, and kept repeating that they were being followed, that someone was after them. As the hours passed, the tension only grew. When they reached the state of Carabobo, Edwin stopped at a National Guard checkpoint. He told the officers there that someone was following him. A sergeant spoke with him, and after observing his unstable state, recommended that he spend the night in Valencia, the state capital. After some hesitation, Edwin agreed, and the officers escorted them to a hotel, where they arrived at around 11:30 p.m. on April 17th. At the hotel, Edwin rejected the first room offered to him. He said he didn't like it, and requested another. According to hotel staff, he then spent a couple of hours in the lobby with Jennifer, talking calmly, like any ordinary couple. Eventually, they went upstairs to their room. What happened next shocked everyone. At 5:30 in the morning, now the 18th of April, Edwin walked calmly down to the reception desk. He approached the night clerk and with chilling composure, told him something straight out of a nightmare. He confessed that he had killed his wife and that her body was in the room. The receptionist was stunned. He immediately alerted security personnel. One of them went upstairs to verify Edwin's claim. Upon entering the room, he found a horrifying scene. Jennifer's lifeless body lay on the bed. Meanwhile, Edwin began calling his family. He claimed that hitmen, supposedly the same ones he believed had been following them since Merida, had killed Jennifer. Later, it was confirmed that Edwin was under the influence of drugs and in a completely altered mental state. The police were notified right away. Within minutes, officers arrived at the hotel and arrested Edwin, who at that time was 28 years old. An investigation was immediately launched, though few details were initially released to the public. Although few official details were released, It was confirmed that Jennifer had suffered at least 3 stab wounds in different areas of her body, the most unsettling detail. The weapon was never found, but this was only the beginning of the end. Following the incident, Jennifer's family finally broke their silence. There was nothing left to hide, no more reason to keep quiet. Painful truths that had long been buried in the shadows began to surface. It was revealed that a year earlier, on April 15, 2009, Edwin had shot Jennifer in the leg. It also came to light that at one point she had attempted to take her own life. Unable to bear the relentless pressure of living in fear, enduring constant abuse and suffering repeated betrayals, it was all consuming her piece by piece. And that wasn't all. After his arrest for Jennifer's death, Edwin made a call to his manager. He spoke of a mysterious suitcase containing $90,000, according to Edwin. After he was taken into custody, he had asked a police officer to safeguard the money, offering him a generous reward in return. He claimed the suitcase was meant to provide for his children, and perhaps even to bargain for his freedom. But did the suitcase and the money ever truly exist? The truth is, it was never found. Given Edwin's severely altered mental state, he was clearly under the influence of drugs at the time. It's entirely possible that the entire story was a hallucination or a desperate fabrication. Yet the scandal did not end there. On April 19, 2010, the world awoke to devastating news. Edwin Inca Valero had died. According to the official report, around 1:30 a.m., a fellow inmate heard strange noises coming from Edwin's cell and alerted the guards. When they arrived, they found Edwin hanging from the bars, having used his pants as a noose. He still showed faint signs of life when they found him, but he died minutes later. The bodies of Edwin and Jennifer were transported back to Merida. Their hometown, Jennifer was mourned in the presence of her family, friends, and her 2 young children, who at the time were only 8 and 5 years old. Her funeral procession was escorted by police to the cemetery, where she was laid to rest amid tears and heartbreak. Edwin, on the other hand, was brought to his mother's house, and despite everything that had happened, thousands of people showed up to bid him a final farewell. His body was then taken to the gym where his boxing journey had begun, a symbolic return to the place where it had all started. It all came to an end when Edwin was finally laid to rest in the same cemetery as Jennifer, though in a completely separate section. Even in death, they remained apart, yet the story did not end there. Investigations continued, gradually uncovering new and unsettling details. Authorities discovered that on the night of the incident, Edwin had left the hotel room several times, each time heading directly to his vehicle. Why? To consume drugs. Inside the vehicle, investigators found at least 7 wrappers containing residue of the substances he had used. As time went on, even more information came to light. It was eventually ruled out that the murder weapon had been a knife or a scalpel. The wounds on Jennifer's neck had a distinctive shape, inconsistent with conventional blades. They appeared to have been inflicted with a pointed hook-like object. Authorities ultimately concluded that the weapon was most likely the metal hook from a nail clipper, an item found inside Jennifer's car, which Edwin reportedly used to ingest drugs days later. A leaked psychiatric report added further insight. The report had been issued on March 26, 2010, shortly after Edwin assaulted Jennifer and attacked medical staff. Signed by a specialist, the evaluation described him as having an unstable and impulsive personality. It further stated that such behavior may have been linked to the traumatic brain injury he had suffered in the earlier motorcycle accident, as well as to a serious addiction to multiple substances. The report strongly recommended toxicological testing to assess the degree of his dependency. But as we now know, those tests were never conducted. Digging deeper into Edwin's troubled history with addiction, some sources claim that he began drinking at the age of 9. And by age 11, he had already started using illegal drugs. Despite the growing body of evidence, his family refused to accept the official version of events. They insisted that Edwin had not taken his own life, but rather that he had been killed inside the prison. As a result, they requested that his body be exhumed, and authorities granted the request. On May 13, 2010, less than a month after he was buried, Edwin's body was exhumed. The procedure lasted more than 3 hours. Some biological samples were analyzed on-site thanks to a mobile forensic laboratory. The forensic samples were also sent to Merida and Caracas for more thorough analysis. Over time, the results of these secondary examinations became public. They confirmed the initial findings. There were no discrepancies between the 2 sets of reports. The conclusion remained the same. Edwin had taken his own life. Now you might be wondering, what happened to the two children of Edwin and Jennifer? At first, the children went to live with their maternal relatives. However, they faced significant hardships, including severe financial struggles. Eventually, after a few years, they were able to move in with their paternal grandmother. Still, money remained a constant issue. Reportedly, the inheritance Edwin left behind, estimated at nearly $1 million, never reached his children. The government had also promised various forms of assistance, including scholarships and social support, to help them move forward, but none of those promises were fulfilled. Interestingly, one of the children chose to follow in her father's footsteps, and it wasn't the son, as many might assume. Jennifer Rosalie Valero, Edwin's daughter, took up boxing and has since become known as La Inca Valero. To many, Edwin Valero was a legend extinguished in the darkest way possible. He had enough talent to conquer the world, but he was ultimately defeated by his inner demons. Today, his story stands not only as a tale of power and promise, but also as a haunting reminder of what happens when violence is normalized and silence becomes complicit. Many people witnessed the abuse Jennifer suffered, yet no one dared to speak out. Caught in the middle were two innocent children, left to pay the highest price, growing up without either parent. Behind every champion, there can also be forgotten victims. And remember, behind every story shared on this channel, there is a real life, and every life matters and deserves to be told. Well, friends, this concludes today's video. A tragic case that left two children behind as collateral damage. Children who lost their mother because their father chose to end her life. Although Edwin was a champion in the ring, his personal life was deeply troubled, plagued by violence, addiction, and unresolved trauma. As we've discussed, there were many silent witnesses to Jennifer's suffering, not only her, but also others who were threatened or assaulted by Edwin, including members of his own family, yet no one raised their voice. In the end, everything spiraled into this heartbreaking tragedy. A young woman who once dreamed of becoming Miss Venezuela had her life come to such a tragic and horrific end. If you found this video informative, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing if you haven't already. I upload new content 3 to 4 times a week, and if you're subscribed, you'll receive a notification every time I post a new video. You can also follow me on my other social media platforms, where I share content almost daily. That's all for now. See you in the next case. Goodbye.